Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to, of course, Sitback with Shaq and Anu. We're back in the studio. Well, at least half of us are back in the studio, and looking forward to obviously making sure that I get the other half in the studio as soon as possible. But he's here. He's obviously watching us. And Anu, good evening to you. How are you? Okay, we're going to make sure that Anu gets back online in just a few minutes. But we have our guest on the show today, Eran Wickramaratne. Eran, thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much for coming back on the show. And it certainly has been a topsy-turvy day today. And we're just basically going to get into all those details in a few minutes. Yeah, tomorrow, big day as far as Sri Lanka is concerned. And it's the very first time we're actually choosing a president, and the parliament is choosing the president. Before we obviously get into the details that we have for Iran on the show this evening, we're going to quickly get into our poll, and let's find out exactly what our daily poll is going to be. Remember, you got to basically send in your messages on the number that's been given. So let's have the daily poll on your screen right now. All right, we have the poll for you, and this is exactly the poll that obviously is on your screen. Do you think SJB's decision to withdraw from the race was the right move? Yes or no? Do you think SJB's decision to withdraw from the race was the right move? Yes or no? You can send in your answers to that number 077 669 1590, 077 669 1590. Anu is the one obviously who gives us the poll, but unfortunately we're going to get him back on the screen right now. He's at home coming to us live online. But Eran, let's basically start off with that question itself. Now, as of last night, we had the opposition leader who was one of the four candidates. This morning, a shocking turn of events as far as we are concerned. I'm sure you knew it last night, right? As far as we are concerned, what was the reason behind this?
No, we as a party, the SJB being the largest opposition party, took a decision some time ago that Sajith Premadasa, our leader, should be the candidate, the nominee for this election. It was some time ago. Then, though that was a party decision, Sajith Premadasa, after thinking through it, when he met the party leaders at a meeting, he told the party leaders the situation in the country is so grave, right? And really everybody needs to come together. Without everybody coming together, we won't be able to even solve the short-term issues. And therefore, he told them, you know, positions don't matter. Whether I'm number one or number two or whatever, it doesn't really matter. I'm flexible. I think that came as a bit of a surprise and a shock to the party leaders. So they discussed it among themselves, and then there was a decision. They thought that it may be better for Sajith Premadasa to be Prime Minister, and that they will put Dullas Alahapperuma, you know, as the presidential candidate. So, because once he had said that we are flexible, we should do what everybody thinks is the best, because we want to stabilize the political situation in the country and really handle the immediate economic issues. So, when they said that, there was Sajith's decision, and then it was conveyed, and then in between, Ranil Wickramasinghe was now acting president. He told the speaker if the opposition and the government could agree on a common candidate to send the name for Prime Minister, right? So then the party leaders decided that they will meet the speaker the next day, and they fixed a meeting with the speaker at 10 o'clock in the morning in Parliament, and they met at 9 o'clock before the meeting, and they were going to tell the speaker, our decision is, you know, there was this request also to name a candidate as Prime Minister. We decided to name Sajith Premadasa. But at the 9 o'clock meeting, there were, as you know, the opposition is fairly clear who is in the opposition. The government is only fragmented because they had more than 150 of the 225 members of parliament, and they are in all kinds of groups. So one group person turned up there and he said, oh, that can't be done now. We shouldn't be making that announcement now. And it was really going back on the previous day's decision. When that happened, right, it was a matter of concern, because we had already, Sajid Premdas had already said, it doesn't really matter to us as long as the country's problems can be solved. So when the party met that evening, they said, the party decision we have taken some time ago that he should be contesting. We were willing to go with Sajid Premadas's changes and flexibility, because we thought if all the parties can come together and that's a way of doing it, let's do it. So that's how this thing continued, that Sajid Premadasa is the candidate. Well, that was the original decision anyway.
Right.
But he had always said that I'm flexible if you think that that's really going to solve the issue. So ultimately the decision, right, many were consulted, right, and the thing in politics is there is no one right decision in decisions like this. There are pros and cons in every decision, and different people will have different views about it. And then lots of people said that maybe the opposition should look more united. Therefore, why don't we come up with a combination which will look united? And then they said, okay, let's put go back to that, put Dullas, which was originally discussed, and Sajid become Prime Minister. So that's how actually it happened.
Right.
Sequence of events.
Okay, interesting. I mean, yes, it was a bit of a shock to almost all of us in terms of what actually happened. I thought we had Anu on the screen, but I think we're going to get him back again. But what was the reason? I mean, why could it not have been the other way around, Eran? Why could it not be the fact that the Dullas Alahapperuma's faction to actually join join SJB, and still Sajid as the opposition leader would most probably be the, I don't know if there's a right thing in politics to do, but would be the right thing to actually go about, and Sajid was still the candidate.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been that way too. What we thought is, even when we originally thought the opposition leader should be running for president, and if we win, then we appoint our cabinet, and we take responsibility for everything. Then this whole, when meeting the other party leaders, this whole concept that we should try to get everybody together and we should do it. So really in this particular arrangement, I would say that there's a considerable amount that we could do, and Sajid Premadas could do, because one of the first things that we expect the new government's cabinet to do is to reintroduce the 19th Amendment.
Right.
See, so that's one of the first things that we expect to happen when the cabinet at its first meeting, that it's brought and everybody has agreed to it. So there's an understanding there. So that if you bring back 19th, then the checks and balances on the presidency is there, and then you have a prime minister and you have a cabinet, right? And the president works on the advice of the prime minister, and then that's the system. That is what we have agreed. Agreed. Of course, I might go one step further and say SJB, Samagi Jana Balavegia's views now go beyond the 19th Amendment.
Okay.
You see, Samagi Jana Balavegia's views are a little bit like, I don't know if you, Shaq, saw the survey, and today it was on the front page of the Financial Times. There's a survey which said that 70% of the people in this country want to do away with the executive president.
Exactly.
I think that sentiment is very prevalent, because they feel that executive presidential powers has been generally misused or not used in a very constructive way, to say, for the betterment of the country. So people have formed an opinion. And the view of the SJB is, I said, goes beyond 19, I can call it 19 plus, we believe that the executive powers of the president should be cut, and we should have a government who is responsible to Parliament. We should have more checks and balances. Also, I think the philosophical shift is this, that for a long period we have been thinking that, this wonder man will come, and this wonder man will solve Sri Lanka's problems. And so we have been electing president after president, all these wonder men, right? And we have all found to our disappointment that there are no wonders, right? And
Wonderless.
Wonderless, and we have been very disappointed.
Right.
And the other thing is, if you really look at society, right, it's very complicated, right? It's not complicated, shall I say, it's very complex. Whatever thing you take, whether you talk about the economy, whether you talk of the law and order situation, whether you talk of education, whether you talk about gender, whatever you talk about, it's complex.
Right.
And this idea that, one individual knows everything, and then that individual feels also like I know everything, what I think is what should go.
Right.
Right? And the more uneducated the person, the more likely the person is to think like that.
Right.
You see, because if it's an educated person, they know what they know, and they also know what they don't know.
Right.
Right? And so they are very much more open to new ideas. They are open to, correction. They are open to advice. They are open to distribution of power.
Okay.
And have a team, and then you say, these people have these responsibilities, right? Give them a free hand.
Right.
To go and deliver.
Right.
You see? So I think the philosophical shift, and this is where the SJB is, that we believe that really to take this country to the next stage, one individual can't do it. You need a team. I mean, I don't have to go name by name. You just look at all the leaders.
Right.
Right? From independence to now. Right? And the criteria I would suggest that you look at is, one of it is education. One. The other is skills. Skills are also important.
Right.
Just because you are educated and have qualifications or letters behind you, you may not have the skills. There are lots of people who don't have qualifications who have great skills. Right? The third very important thing is, you need to have ethics and morality.
Right.
You can be educated. I am more worried about educated rogues than uneducated rogues. You see?
Blue collar robbery.
Yeah. I'm more worried about them.
Right.
So ethics and morality overrides everything. That is has to be a given. So then you have education, you have skills, right? And you have to have experience. Experience also matters.
Right.
You see, now if you are hiring for your company,
Right.
CEO, right? You don't go and hire a security guard to be CEO of the company.
Right.
I'm not looking down on security guard. The security guard's job is being a guard. He's trained in that.
Right.
That's his specialty. That's what he does.
Right.
But you don't take him and you don't put him in the CEO's chair, because you need a separate set of skills, experience, and all that, right? But what happens generally in our country, right? We don't put the right person in the right job. You see, it's not a merit-based system.
Right.
Right? It's not a merit-based system. We tend to look at generally the principle of seniority. Right? Now in the private sector, this, what I'm saying, doesn't apply largely in the private sector, because the private sector is more merit-based, but others we look at the principle of seniority. And then there's something else which people may not admit, right? But we do, right? Is we discriminate.
Right.
Right? We discriminate. There's no two words about it. People will try to nicely pepper over it, right? But we discriminate, right? So we will discriminate. Sometimes we discriminate on race, on caste, on religion, on class. We discriminate.
Right.
Right? And Sri Lankans are not open about these things. And one thing about these recent protests, right, that came on the roads is that suddenly a new generation of people were out there, right? And I mean, suddenly they were questioning what my generation did. You see, all this discrimination of different kinds. They were questioning it, right? And one of the nice things I was seeing is suddenly a commonality, a kind of a new Sri Lankan identity, a new philosophy was beginning to emerge, you see. So I think if we can get past that, and we can get more the merit-based principle, right, then I think we can move this country to the next level.
We also have lots of questions coming in which will come up on the screen in any moment from now, but if Sajith Premadasa continued to be a candidate along with the rest of the candidates that were basically there, and if the current acting president does decide to, he does win and becomes a president, and if the prime minister role was offered to the opposition leader, would he take it? Would he have taken it is the question.
So what you are saying is the present acting president becomes a president,
yes,
and he invites Sajith Premadasa to become the prime minister. Will he take it?
That's right.
Okay. It's a very good question that you are asking. Very good question. And I can't answer for Sajith Premadasa, but I won't duck the question.
Right.
I can't answer for him. He'll have to make his own decision. Right.
But he would make his decision consulting the seniors in the party.
He'll consult widely and all that. But I would say this, right? I would say that we as an opposition had to play our role responsibly. Right? Either the opposition leader should contest, that's being responsible, we are not running away from responsibility, or we should have a common candidate, and that's what we have done now, and say let's just back one and all of us shouldn't be contesting.
Right.
So create a consensus. So that is a demonstration of our responsibility to the country. Mm-hmm. Then we have an election, and tomorrow somebody gets elected.
Right.
Somebody gets elected tomorrow. Now this is what I strongly believe. Once that election is over, this country is in such a big mess. Such a big mess. Coming here, the queues I saw for petrol and diesel running into kilometers.
True.
No country in the world has this situation, right? Going into kilometers. If you look, you talk to hospitals, and I saw an advertisement the other day of Sri Jayawardenepura Hospital saying these medicines are needed. This is one of the leading hospitals in the country.
That's right.
What are we talking? This is not some private thing. This is the government's leading hospital, right? That these medicines are needed, pharmaceuticals. If suddenly, I'm not what do you call, if I suddenly have a heart attack, others don't like saying it. They say, don't say that, don't say that.
Right.
If I suddenly have a heart attack, right? And I had to be rushed to the hospital, right? And maybe there is some very important drug to be given to me. And if that drug is not there, right, I'll be dead.
Right.
But you won't even know that that drug was not there, and that's why I'm dead. You see, the situation is that grave at the moment, mm-hmm. right? So it's pharmaceuticals, it's petrol, gas, food, certain food shortages and things like that. So it's a very, very dire situation. So once this election is over, okay, once this election is over, to create political stability and to get the country out of its immediate mess, right? Because at some point we have to go for an election.
Yeah.
People must decide. People must give a mandate. Because like Gotabaya Rajapaksa, he won an election and he was legal, but he didn't have legitimacy. That's why people said, get out, right? Similarly, this parliament, right, is legal. We are elected, but it doesn't have legitimacy.
Right.
That is why a new mandate is needed. But to create that new mandate, we have to create some stability first, and there are immediate needs in the country that has to be addressed, and sooner than later we should then allow people to decide who should be governing this country and get a fresh mandate. So in the present circumstances, I believe after the election is over tomorrow, doesn't matter who the president is, my personal view is that we have to get together, create political stability, try to address the immediate issues in the country, right? And then after a while, ask the people to decide who should be governing the country.
You still haven't answered the question.
I have answered the question.
No, will Sajith Premadasa accept a Prime Minister role?
I can't answer for Sajith Premadasa.
Will
I can answer for the opposition.
Will SJB encourage him to actually take that role if it was given?
I'm so disappointed with you, Shaq. You didn't ask me whether I will accept the Prime Minister's role. You asked whether Sajith Premadasa will accept it. I'm so disappointed. No?
We'll disappoint you further.
I'm joking. Right? So what I'm saying is, right, doesn't matter who wins the election, right? Every responsible party, including the SJB,
right?
If we are called,
right,
we can't force ourselves.
Right.
If you are called to play a role in government,
right,
I think for the interim period to create political stability, I think we should all be open to it.
Okay, excellent. All right, so here's a quick question that's coming from Joshua. If Dullas wins, what ministerial portfolio is Eran more likely to get? Before you answer that question, Eran, how does this all-party government work? Now, after tomorrow's whoever wins, what's the next process? And then we can get into Joshua's question.
Yeah, so first thing is there are a number of ministries, right? And sometimes people say things like too many ministries, why can't you have half of it? And there are discussions like that. But I think we have to be more scientific about it. Some studies have been done about it with different subjects, different numbers of institutions that have to be overseen.
Right.
You know, so if you look at it more scientifically, right, there is a absolute number. You can't just say 10 or 15 or whatever. So I think that the number, there are various studies that have been done in the past, the number will look closer to 25. Close, can be a bit less, but closer to 25. So those are the number of ministries. But in this discussion, we have agreed that it shouldn't exceed that number. You see?
Okay.
We have, but we have to look at it, the formation of it, we have to look at it. So then, once that is done, the President invites the person with the confidence of the House to be the Prime Minister. And then, right, the President, right, on the advice of the Prime Minister, will appoint a cabinet.
Right.
Right? And then the ministries will be allocated to those people. Now, in an all-party government, there will have to be a lot more discussion because you have an objective in the all-party government. So, one of the objectives is everybody is working together.
Right.
Right? So, there will be discussions about representation.
Right.
That all the parties who are coming into government should be represented in it. And then those parties will then decide who the individuals should be, you know, in the cabinet. They will decide that. As to the portfolios, it will be the President and the Prime Minister, right, will discuss it and agree on what those portfolios, who should get what portfolio, they will discuss and agree on.
Now, in terms of this all-party government we're talking about, now we also see that the SLPP is actually broken into two, right? Obviously, two factions are supporting two different candidates. Now, how does that work? Because whatever said and done, irrespective of the fact that it's broken into two, it is still one party. And you still require, even if whoever wins the presidency tomorrow could be somebody who didn't actually vote for that individual. Are they still eligible to be in the all-party government because they're still from one party?
Well, theoretically, what you're saying is possible.
Okay.
Right? Because you know, let's just say we have SJB is one party, without talking about other parties.
Right, okay.
And let's say we have 25 ministries, and let's say SJB is going to put X number of ministers in.
Right.
And then we have, you know, nearly 50 members of parliament. So theoretically, what you are saying is maybe say two people don't vote for the SJB candidate.
Yep.
Theoretically, they vote for some other candidate.
Because nobody knows.
Yeah, nobody knows. It's a secret ballot. And then, you know, maybe one of those people can be in the government.
Exactly.
So theoretically, it's possible.
Right.
Theoretically, right? If you look at the mechanics. But in practice, generally the leaders know their people.
Right.
That's one. And also they know the ability of their people. The only point I will make here from history, not from what's going to happen tomorrow.
Right.
Because that won't be fair by the present leaders, but from history, is that we should really be looking at putting the people with ability, with a background into this. We need to begin to break away
Right.
from the past. We need to be moving from, if I could call it, the Indian model.
Right.
And India has actually moved quite a bit,
Right.
more than Sri Lanka, into the Southeast Asian model, right? The Singaporean model we talk about, right? That, this is a job, right? And politicians don't like talking about it like that, because we have been using for long, the Gandhian terms, we are serving the people, we are servants of the people, and we've glorified this thing, and we moved away from the idea that this is a job, it's a responsibility, right? And you have to deliver, right? And there must be some key performance indicators. That concept,
Right.
you follow? So if you have that concept, then you will say, my heavens, to achieve that, we need to really put these people in. But Sri Lankan politics hasn't evolved to that place yet, you see.
So you're still going to hold the individuals who voted for you close by to actually give them ministerial posts?
Yeah, that's why I said I won't be answering for the future. I'm looking at history and
What
saying
happened?
that's what's happened.
Right.
And I'm saying let's have a break from the past.
Right.
Right. And let's begin to move in this new direction. And maybe bring even some new people into the cabinet. It doesn't always have to be seniors.
Right.
But if you think that there are capable people, qualified people, bring them in, give them the responsibility and let them do it.
All right, okay. Devmi has sent a question, Eran. How much of an impact do the Rajapaksas still have within the parliament despite their image demise in the public eye?
I think definitely they will have influence more than impact, influence. Because if you think about it and just go 2 years back, right, they had 2/3 of parliament.
Right.
And those people are still there.
Yeah.
Right. So some.
Look, the current two candidates are also pretty much backed by them. If you look at it, because from the same faction.
Yeah, I won't say backed by them, but certainly have been associated with them.
Of course, yeah.
Right, and in the last 2 years, I mean, they have been there, they have had 2/3 of parliament, so clearly, and then they know everybody there, and therefore, the question is how much of an influence does it have?
Right.
But we fair by a large number of them, people have got enlightened.
Right.
Even within that SLPP government thing. And that is why some of them walked out and they actually sat in the opposition.
Right.
There were about 41 MPs
Right.
who walked out and sat in the opposition. So it shows that they're enlightened, they were associated with them.
Enlightened.
Yeah, they were enlightened because they have realized that
something's wrong.
Something's wrong. We can't be just blind followers.
Right.
We need to respect our own intellect. Put it that way, right? And therefore, they moved out, right? So some have moved out, and some have taken independent decisions, and so forth. But considerable number are still there, because as I said, this parliament is a parliament from 2 years ago. It's a legal, right? And but it doesn't have the legitimacy. That's why I'm saying at some point sooner rather than later, we have to actually go to get the mandate of the people. I also will put it like this, because it's legal, right? We have to work with it.
Right.
Because a country, a democracy, must work within its constitution.
Of course.
And the rule of law.
Of course.
Constitutions are not perfect, laws are not perfect, I admit to all of that.
Right.
But then we must amend them, change them. We can't cast them aside and just do anything we please, because most people agree with me, but there are a few who have made statements like, oh, constitutions don't matter, the law doesn't matter, what we say matter. Who is we? Then you must come and prove that you have a mandate.
Right.
And I say this to everybody, right? You know, the problem is not with our democracy. The problem is not with our parliament. There are shortcomings. The problem is with the people we have sent to parliament.
Right.
So, burning parliament is not the option. If Eran Wickramaratne is not suitable, sending Eran Wickramaratne home is the option.
Right.
And put more qualified people there. And we had to be clear about that. We cannot let anybody threaten our democratic way of life and
Right.
work outside the legal and constitutional process. However big the shortcomings are, we must correct them. We must correct them. And that's why I'm saying I welcome all the protesters out there to join political parties and come this time contest the elections and come to parliament, or form your own political parties.
Right.
You see, and come, get the people's mandate, come, take over and govern the country and lead us to a better place. You see, so this way we have to be within that framework.
So, Eran, usually in a normal world, when you obviously go into elections, each political party puts out a mandate to the public. Now, this is something that I don't think any Sri Lankan has seen ever before, where the parliament is deciding the next president, and it's also like it's a three-horse race at the moment. So, in order for you to request individuals to vote for your candidate, do you declare a mandate towards them in terms of your working plan? Now, right now, Sri Lanka needs a working plan. How are you going to get us out of this mess, so to say? How do you present it to them, or are you basically say, Machan, please come and vote for me? How does that work?
No, we have actually worked out
Right.
what we call a common economic program.
Okay.
And we have also worked out a common political program. All the parties came together. I can't say all because there are one or two who are competing independently. No?
Understood.
Yeah, so all these parties came together and we worked out an economic program. So we worked out an economic program, you know, what will we do in the short term, medium term, long term. And then we worked out a political program. We agreed politically. Now the election is tomorrow and you may have a new government tomorrow.
Right.
You see, and therefore we had to work on that and finalize it, which we did finalize it.
Right.
You see, because you need it, and then we shared it with members of parliament. We had you know, sessions with them, explaining to them, you know, and the difficulties, the theory behind it, what steps would have to be taken, the expectations of people, and you know, whether those expectations can be met or won't be met. Very honest discussion. So if I try to explain a little bit of that on the economic program, for example, right? Sri Lanka has a huge budget deficit.
Yeah.
Right? At the time we were in office, it came down from about 7 to about 5. We had to take it down to 3.5. That was the goal, right? And the Fiscal Responsibility Act says it should be less than 5. There's an act of parliament which says that, you see. So taking that, so what did we do? We raised the revenues. So it was a fiscal consolidation based on higher revenues. Then you have the Gotabaya Rajapaksa go around the country and say, if I come, I'll cut all the taxes. So largely the business community is very happy to hear that.
Right.
I don't know, Shaq, whether you were happy also and whether you voted as well, right? They're very happy to hear this kind of thing. So they voted. And what a mess. The country's revenue fell by 1/3. 600 billion the country's revenue fell by. So we got into this mess, right? So Sri Lanka is a twin deficit country. One is a budget deficit. 2, it's a balance of payments deficit, right? And so how do you really manage this? So there's a huge wrong policy and mismanagement issue here, right? So now what we have to do is we have to correct it, right? Now this will not shock you, right? We've just having power cuts all over the place, right? But the estimated loss of the Ceylon Electricity Board, revenue is 300 billion this year. revenue estimated, right? And the cost is 900 billion.
Wow.
Estimated loss of the Ceylon Electricity Board is going to be 600 billion, right? Even all the income tax collected in the country, right, is not more than that. So you can see the huge issues. So it doesn't matter which government is in office, right? You have to address that issue, right? That you have to address that issue. You say, if I was going to be in office tomorrow, right, I would have put the electricity costs up today so that I could have blamed somebody else.
Right.
Right. But any new government, doesn't matter who is the president, doesn't matter who the government is, right, will have to put the prices of energy and electricity up. And it will have to happen very, very quickly. Now, the reason I am saying these things is, right, we have to get out of lying in politics.
That's a bit difficult, no?
Yeah, we have to get out of it. We have to tell people the truth.
Right.
We have to tell people the truth, you see. And I think that if we tell people the truth and we get onto the right road, right, people will begin to build confidence. If you start lying to them, this is what has been happening. When I'm talking about lying here, I'm talking about economic policy, right? So that has to be addressed. So this is why I said, right, it's not going to be easy. For any government, it's not going to be easy. But at least you should be on the right track on policy. I'll give you another example. Something which Mangala Samaraveera and I said, 3-4 years ago, and people laughed at us, right? Some people said, Iran, I said, we need to have a fuel price formula. So today a liter of petrol is, let's say, 550 rupees. We were giving it at 200 rupees a liter of petrol, right? So the 3-roda Rathe goes to the petrol station, puts 10 liters in.
They don't go, they just live there.
That's now. Normally they go to the station.
Right.
They put in 10 liters, let's say, into their tank.
Right.
Right. So the difference between 200 rupees and 550 rupees a liter is 350.
Right.
350 into 10 is 3,500 rupees. So the benefit the 3-roda Rathe gets is 3,500 rupees. Shaq drives his, I don't know, V8 or whatever, and he goes in there, and he puts in 100 liters, okay, 80 liters.
80 liters.
Yeah, on the big vehicle.
Right.
So to keep my example, illustration clear, he puts in 100 liters. He gets a benefit of 35,000 rupees when he walks out of the petrol station. This has been Sri Lanka's policy. For decades this has been the policy. I go to any suburb, poor suburb, even today I was in one talking to people. The first thing they tell me is, Badu mila palne karanna one. Badu mila palne karanna one. That's wrong. That goes to inflation, needs to be under control, but not price controls. So when we said 4 years ago, right, we said we must have a fuel price formula, people laughed at us.
Right.
Then the whole idea of the formula is, we are importing oil, we don't produce it in this country, there's an international price, the international price must be the price at the petrol station.
Right.
Right? That's what the price should be. We have been giving subsidies to people who shouldn't have been getting subsidies. We should be subsidizing the poor and the vulnerable. I am not a liberal economist.
Right.
I'm a social market economist. I believe in the markets. I believe in creating the environment for business and for businesses to do well. But I also believe in taxing them once they do well, so that we can have social justice in this country. Other peoples, the poorer segments of society, the vulnerable segments, those children could also have an education and a quality education. So this is why. Sometimes I hear people say like, "Apo aragollang horakam karakam okkoma genawat rate prashna visandanna puluwan." No. Corruption we are against. and we must go after stolen assets. But that's not been the main issue in this country. That is an issue. But the bigger issue is wrong policies have been followed.
So you're saying that
there's
a requirement of tax reforms that's actually needed?
Yeah,
massive reforms.
Yeah, so tax is one. The other side, this time we did the tax in the 2015-19 government.
Right.
But this time fiscal consolidation will also mean we have to cut costs.
Right.
You can't only do it through revenue.
Right.
So we'll have to look at capital expenditure, right, and we'll have to cut that. We'll have to look at the public service, right, we'll have to look at wastage. There's no other way.
So you need to, what you're saying is that if you do get into government, irrespective of who comes into government, there's going to be some very, very tough decisions that needs to be taken.
Yes, because if you look at Sri Lanka's history, Shaq, right, if you look at it, what has really happened? It's the wrong policies that we have followed, right? So my example, I gave you that example. Then what do? Right? We spend more than we receive.
Right.
Simply, if you put it simply, right? So expenditure is more than revenue. Then what does the central bank do? They print the money and give it to us to bridge the gap.
Right.
Right? Wrong policy. So you do this year after year after year. You are living beyond your means, right? Beyond your means. So we have lived beyond our means, and we have now come to a major, major crisis, because if you compare that to the house, we are living beyond your means, and then you keep borrowing, and then you have mortgaged your house. One day the letter comes, vacate, house being sold. Same thing for the country. We've lived beyond our means. Nobody else is willing to give us debt, and they are all saying pay us back, right? And we are all in a corner. So policy has been the main issue has been policy. Certainly we need to look at corruption, anti-corruption and all of that. I'm not taking away from that. But policy, we've got the wrong policy and we've got into this wrong mess. We should at least correct it now and put ourselves on the right track.
Okay, here's a quick question from Supun. Once the Wonder of Asia gets Dullas, Ranil or AKD tomorrow, realistically, how long are we looking at for the basic requirements like gas, fuel and uninterrupted electricity to be supplied like it used to? I can't even remember the last time when we had uninterrupted any of those.
I like this question, but this question also reminds me of traditional politics.
Right.
And the traditional politician, you go somewhere and people ask you, this is a little bit more sophisticated. Normally what they ask you in a poor suburb if you go is, පුතාට රස්සාවක් දෙන්න පුළුවන්ද?
Right.
Sir, මගේ වහල ලීක් වෙනවා sir. Sheets ටිකක් දෙන්න පුළුවන්ද? Right? And what does the traditional politician say? එන්න CV එක අරන් එන්න අපි බලයට ආපු ගමන්ම මම රස්සාව දෙන්නම්. Right? That's what the traditional politician says. නැත්තම් මම sheet එක අරන් දෙන්නම්. Right? That's what we say. So this question is definitely a little bit more sophisticated question. And then the traditional politician will say, oh, of course we'll solve it tomorrow.
Right.
Vote for us immediately.
Right.
Right. And I won't do that. I won't do that. So if I go through that one by one, the gas issue will be resolved very quickly, because the World Bank has given some funding and people have said 4 months. I'm saying 3 months. I think it is resolved. It's a matter now of logistics and operations. So you will get your cooking gas. Now our task will be is to see how do we take it from 3 months to 6 months. On the gas thing, I think that will be there. Then if you look at pharmaceuticals, right, there are shortages, right, but I'm confident that that issue also could be resolved, because there is emergency funding that you can tap into, right, and the pharmaceuticals issue could be resolved. The food shortage issue will be there. It will be there for a season, because fortunately we are blessed with good weather in this country, right. So it's a question about wrong policies, again. It was a chemical fertilizer issue.
Right.
And fertilizer is beginning to come. So to give you an idea, food, essential foods, pharmaceuticals, gas and fertilizer, all that put together per month is about 150 million at most, and we can manage within that. So those issues are more fixable, more fixable. One or two are already getting fixed. And I think that if you have a new government in which the international community and friendly countries have confidence in, I think that can be fixed. The more difficult one to fix is the fuel issue, because when oil prices were at its height, right, it's come down slightly, we need about $500 million a month. But I think with about 350, we will be able to probably manage it, right, $350 a month. The question is, we don't have the $350 million at the moment. So we have had some conversations, and we're trying to see if we can get some supply credits. There are some, shall I put it like this, early favorable looking signs that we might get some supply credit, right, on the oil. And also we have had some help from the Indian government on different supplies, and conversations are going even at the moment, and I think that our friendly countries, right, will help us. We will also have to keep to the other side of the bargain, right, because we have sometimes come to arrangements with India and we have not really delivered on them. We have come into arrangements with Japan in the past and we have not delivered on them. So we need to, that's why they said they need a political stable environment, they need a trustworthy government, they need the people who really will do what they say. That's all a part of this. So the other issues within months could be solved. The oil issue will take a little while longer to ease off, right? But these are the immediate things. But Sri Lanka's problems are more than the immediate. The moment the immediate things are solved, we shouldn't run away thinking we've solved the problem, because we haven't solved the fundamentals. And therefore, we need to take the hard decisions and go and solve the fundamental issues, otherwise it can recur again.
We're almost into the end of the show, Eran. What are the chances of your candidates winning tomorrow? The candidates that SJP is obviously backing. You know, we know what's going on in the parliament. There's a lot of horse trading that's obviously happening, which is a given. You are going up against somebody who's actually been in the parliament major part of his life, right? Someone you worked with, someone he's worked with most of the people of the SJP, and now you obviously have forged a new alliance, an alliance with individuals who you were actually on the opposite side most often than not in your political career, coming together, putting your politics aside. What are the chances of the candidates that the SJP is backing comes out tops tomorrow?
I think there's a very good chance that it will happen. As I said, I don't know about horse trading and how that works and who will by whom, and I just can't comment on it.
Right.
But as we know, and we've heard that in the past as well, that politics is not clean, right? So that's a part I can't predict. But if I just look at it logically and look at the different groups in parliament, look at the situation in the country and on the ground, look at the revolution that has happened, right? And members of parliament, that as I said, though parliament is legal but not legitimate, we'll have to really think very carefully that we need to take decisions which are going to stabilize the country. And I think people have been rethinking. So as you said, the SLPP is not in two groups. I think there are different groups and factions. Some of them have already publicly come out and said that they will be supporting the candidate that we are supporting. They have said that publicly. And so I would say that certainly there's a very good chance, very good chance that the candidate will succeed, you see. But I would say, because you referred to horse trading and all this kind of thing.
All this kind of thing.
Right, yeah, that, corruption, right, is not acceptable. It doesn't matter who does it. And one of the things that we will do in our new government is that we will strengthen the anti-corruption effort. So what we are going to do on the anti-corruption effort is we are going to move amendments to the assets and liabilities declaration to make it public. That's one. The second thing is the commission to investigate bribery and corruption, SLPP. It's 28 years and no politician or public servant of significance has ever been convicted, right? Because it's not independent. In 2019, we drew up a law. In 2019, that law is with the Attorney General's Department. Right? We talked about it today too, right? When we were talking about the common political program, right? We said, let's bring that law immediately, and therefore SLPP becomes independent from government manipulation, right? So that it can progress, which is investigations. Then the third thing is the United Nations has a program called the Stolen Assets Recovery Program. The World Bank and others, everybody works jointly on this effort. We don't have a law in this country.
Right.
So a new law will have to be brought in, and we need to bring that new law in. I must say this upfront. When you talk about anti-corruption, politicians have a tendency to tell the country that we are targeting our political opponents. That tendency is there. When we are in office, we are targeting the opposition. When the opposition is in office, they are targeting us. That tendency is there. I think we need to get away from that. All the comments I make on anti-corruption, I am not thinking of any individual.
Right.
I'm thinking of systems.
Right.
And we need to put the systems in place. And we need to make the systems independent. So now I talked only about the laws there, but the laws alone are not enough. One of the problems in the country is not legal frameworks, but implementation.
Right.
So, for example, here, right, I'm the minister, right, and you are the Attorney General. You are advising the minister. Then I am suddenly accused of being corrupt. Then you have to prosecute me, right? There's a difficulty, there's a conflict.
Right.
Conflict.
Right.
So we need to look at independent public prosecution, you see, which is separate. So you continue to be the advisor to the government, but independent public prosecution. So that when governments change even, that independent effort goes on, right? And some countries did this. Right. I remember in 1974, right, Hong Kong did this. They created an independent commission, anti-bribery corruption commission, and they created an independent public prosecutor's office. So there are different models in different places. I'm not prescribing what the model should be, but I'm definitely strong on the principle there must be an independent public prosecution process. So then people can't accuse and say this is, you're going after your political opponents. These are convenient things politicians like to say to escape. No, it should be independent, it should be credible, and we need to put that in place as well. So in our new government, because that's one of the cries in this protests that have been going on throughout the country, saying that you need a clean government. So systems change was one big cry.
We'll quickly get into this question before we have to wind up as far as the show is concerned. If Dullas wins tomorrow, what's your opinion about Harsha De Silva as a finance minister? I think we're going back to portfolios again in this question, since he is the most suitable and well-educated minister to handle the same due to the ongoing current financial crisis situation. Diluksha, I'm not too sure, wants to know.
Yeah, so clearly, right, this question has been put, right, to me, right? So it's embarrassing for me to answer this question.
Because you're far more educated than Harsha.
No. I mean, I'm very straightforward.
Yeah.
You see? So I'm saying that this question has been particularly put forward to me, thinking that I could be cornered. Eran Wickramaratne can never be cornered. can never be cornered.
Unless
right?
he's wearing a sarong and is at golf face.
even then I can run. And even then I can escape. You see? That's why I'm very direct about these things, right? These questions are put, and sometimes these questions are looking innocent.
Right.
Right, and they are put thinking that, you know, they can embarrass you, that you will have to commit this and that, right? Harsha De Silva is an educated person. He's very capable. Harsha and I am friends.
Right, of course.
Okay, Harsha and I am friends. We work together with Kabir Hashim as the economics team of the Samagi Jana Balawege. Harsha's background is different. Harsha's background is economics. He's a PhD in economics.
Right, yeah.
A PhD. And he's worked in a bank, and Harsha has also had his own company, right, in research and marketing and things like that. And he is playing a very valuable contribution to the Samagi Jana Balawege, right. Kabir Hashim, right, is educated, right, he's been in the Sri Lankan university system. Kabir has been a consultant. Kabir has had a business background. Kabir is more senior than Harsha and me in terms of his political experience, right? And he has had a long experience. So it's a different background, right? And then my background is, basically I was more sportsman. That's why when people said, you can run, and people who know me, they were not surprised at all, right? Because I did lots of sports in school, captain hockey, cricket colours, Sri Lankan schools, played in England, you know, all that. And then I went into university, School of Oriental and African Studies, did economics, and did my master's in economics, then joined Citibank, then became vice president of Citibank, then created a new bank in Sri Lanka called the NDB Bank, then merged it with the National Development Bank, became the Group C of the National Development Bank. Then I created the Information Communications Technology Agency with others and became its first chairman using information technology in government. Then I came into politics, and I was a deputy minister, then I was state minister of finance, right, in the past government. All I say is this, right, if somebody is trying to create an issue, there will be no issue. Everyone is qualified, everyone has a different set of experience, right, and there will be different jobs and different responsibilities, right?
Sure.
And I go back to that, a merit-based system. Right, the different skills are used where it will be most effective. I think that's how we should view this.
Just before we go, Eran, what's the process? What time does election start tomorrow at the Parliament? How does it work? If you can just briefly tell us.
Yeah, so the elections will start at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
And the Secretary General is a returning officer.
Right.
And now the nominations are in.
Right.
So there are 3 candidates. There will be a ballot paper.
Right.
And then when our name is called out,
right,
we will go up, and then we will be given a ballot paper, and then we can put our preferences. So there are 3 candidates. We can put 1, 2, 3, depending on our preference.
Right.
If we don't want to put the preferences and we want to vote for only one person,
right,
we just put 1.
Right.
Just for that person.
Right.
Then we have to fold the ballot paper. And then on one side is the seal of the Secretary General. And then you have to show the Secretary General the seal. That is, then he knows that this is a legitimate ballot paper.
Right.
And then we put the ballot paper in.
Right.
And then 225 do that.
Wow.
And when that's over, it will take a little time for
right,
225 people to do that. And once that's done, then in Parliament, the Secretary General, each of the 3 candidates will have one of their observers called to the table.
Right.
And the Secretary General will then basically count the ballots. So they separate the ballots. The ones will be separated. How many ones did X get, how many ones did Y get, how many ones did Z get.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Right. And then if somebody has got more than 50%, he is elected basically president of the country,
right,
and they will make the declaration immediately. If not, if it's below that, then what they will do is they will look for the, they will take the last person, the third person,
right,
and see if the third person's ballots have second preferences.
Right.
And the second preferences will be added to the first two.
Wow.
Right, the first two. Right. So then you end up with 2. And then, even if you don't have, right, 50%, ultimately, the person with the highest number of votes becomes declared as the winner of the election. And then the president of the country is elected, and this president of the country is elected only for the unexpired period of the former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa.
Right.
That's what the Constitution says.
Right. So it's certainly going to be a long day in Parliament tomorrow in that case. All right, just about to wind up the show with Eran. I think we need to get back into the question with the poll that we had earlier on. This was the poll, and this is basically what you had to do. Send in your preference, so to say, on that number. Do you think SJB's decision to withdraw from the race was the right move? Yes or no? Everyone watching us on Channel 1, on Dialogue TV, everybody on Pornhub social media platforms have voted for it. Just as it is, we're going to basically reveal the answer. Let's have it on your screen right now. 34% say SJB's decision to withdraw from the race was the right move. 34% say that SJB's decision to withdraw from the race was the right move. So clearly more people wanted Sajith Premadasa to be in running as far as a presidential candidate is concerned. Well, there you go. Thank you very much, Eran. All the very best for tomorrow. Thanks so much for being a part of the show.
Thank you. Thank you. After tomorrow's election result, you can put the same question.
Well, yeah, okay. All right, I think that's just a little hint that he passed there. But till we actually speak to you tomorrow night, right here on Channel 1 Dialogue TV and our Pornhub platforms. Thanks so much for being a part of the show. So sorry that Anu couldn't make it on the show. Unfortunately, he had some issues with his connection, but we'll make sure that he'll be with us tomorrow night at 10 o'clock. Till then, have yourself a good night.